Good morning, everybody. Today is Cadd 212, Class C, on Monday, September 27th. Today in class, we're going to be going over sheet information. We're going to be moving into the phase where we're not going to be necessarily working on too much design stuff. You still have time to tweak the design stuff, but we need to move a little fast into getting our sheets completed and what that means. So we're going to talk about that today and talk about how to create the sheets, how to talk about the create dimensions, regular dimensions that would be used in your plans. And then we'll also review temporary dimensions. I think some people had a question about that. And then we'll also talk about how to poche. And poche is actually filling in the space between your walls, creating that as a black space. So it just makes the set of plans easier to read. So we'll talk about that a little bit further when we get to that point. So that's pretty much what we're going to be reviewing today. At this point in class, you should be getting to a point where you've finished all your design stuff. Just because of the very short semester, we haven't touched on a lot of the more advanced stuff, but getting this stuff under your belt will help us add to the advanced stuff in the second half of the semester. So what we want to do for this week is just finish up our sheets, finish up our, and then we'll come back on Wednesday and we'll tweak our drawing, open the class up to any questions that you have that you need finished up, and we'll touch on a couple of new topics. But for the most part, we wanted to get to the point where you can get this ready, your entire project ready to turn in by Friday. That'll give me a chance to grade it over the weekend and then get your grades in by the following Monday for when grades are due. And then the following Monday, week from today, we'll be starting the second half of the semester, which will start that new project. So that's pretty much how the rest of this week's going to go up until next week. So let's go ahead and jump into today's lecture. So sheet information, what does that mean? Well, we kind of touched on this very briefly at the beginning of the project when we talked about our plan set. How these sheets are numbered, and this information down here, such as a G101, if you're working on architectural drawings, those are A101. These are the kind of sheets that we're going to be needing. So where do I get that information from? So let's close that. You can go down to, it's under files and sheet numbers. So if we want to open that up, these are all the different sheets. Well, not all of them, but a pretty good idea of like what some of the sheets you'll be using within anytime you create a set of drawings. The main ones that we're going to be using for this, the mid-semester midterm project, are we're going to learn how to create a G101 sheet, which is your title sheet. We're going to do an A101, which is your site plan. We're going to do an A201, which is your architectural floor plan. And then we're also going to do some elevations. It'll be an A301. So we're going to do 4 elevations, north, south, east, west. So on those sheets, we're going to probably put 2 drawings per sheet. So that means like your north and south elevations will be on A301. Your east and west elevations will be on A302. Rest of the we'll probably touch base on a lot of these other ones later on in the second half of the semester, but the only ones that you need for the midterm project are these 4 right here. So I've got those marked off for you. So how do we create sheets in Revit? So let's jump into our Revit file. Let's see. All right, there we go. So if we come over to our project browser, you'll notice that we have everything in here. If you look down here a little bit further, well, they have a section for sheets as well. So for sheets, in order to create those, we want to right-click, click on New Sheet. And this one is already preloaded in your project. So if we want to add different size sheets, we need to go to load. And then we'll scroll all the way down to title blocks. And then we have a variety of different sheets that we can use. Now for this particular project, we're just going to use a smaller size sheet. We're going to use the B11 by 17 horizontal. So we'll double click on that. And notice how that will get loaded into your sheets here. Once you load it, you do not have to go back and reload it. Let's check something. I just want to make sure I was recording everything. Let's see. Once you load the sheet, you want to make sure that it's loaded. You don't have to go back and reload it. So if I did close this and I went back to sheets, and I did new sheet, notice it is loaded. So one time, just do it the first time and then you're good to go. So let's go ahead and open up a sheet. So we've got something that looks like this. So it automatically defaults to an A101, but I can change all this information on here. And let's create that as double click on that. And I'm just gonna make this my general information sheet. So it's gonna be a G101. I'm going to change the name to general information sheet. We're going to need this information down here as well. For this class, for the project, our project number is going to be Cadd 212. MT from midterm. The issue date is actually going to be the day that it's due, which is going to be Friday, and that's October 1st. Okay. Oops. Drawn by you, your initials. It's going to be checked by me. You can put my, okay. There we go. And you can just use my initials for that. So make sure all this information is updated in your sheets when you create them. We're also going to have to update this information here. So the owner of this, let's just call it Delgado DCC. And then project name will be midterm project. You can have artistic license to rename this something else if you want to. But just, for the most part, let's just name it owner DCC, Delgado Community College. This is our midterm project. The first sheet that we're creating is our G101, our general information sheet. Project number is Cadd 212 MT for midterm. Date is October 1st, 2021, the day that it's due, drawn by your initials, checked by my initials. So that's kind of the beginning of what we want to do on every sheet, is fill in this information on here. The next thing, since this is the general information sheet, let's jump back to Canvas. And let's take a look at this plan set again. Let me download that. All right, so when we're creating our general information sheet, this is pretty much what we want to have in mind. And I definitely recommend always when we're creating sheets to refer back to this little set that I gave you so you can get an idea of how things should be laid out. Here we have our title sheet, which includes the title of the project. We have architect information down here. If we had this information, we have this also. And then over here on this side, notice it is a repeat of the same information. So we have the same thing, G101. Actually, this is our title sheet, not our general information sheet. This is our general information sheet, sorry. Oops. So call this your title sheet. So for our title sheet, you want to just have your name on here, the day that it's due. If you came up with the name of the project, or if you just want to name it midterm project, we can do it like that. So let's just see how we do that. Let's jump back to Revit. So in order to annotate anything on here, we want to go to the Annotate tab. And notice here's our text box. So we click on text box and we just come down here and click here. I can start typing whatever I want and things will fall in place. So sometimes it's not going to come into the size that you want it to. So we can go back over here to properties and notice the default is text 1/4 inch Arial. But if we go into edit type, duplicate, rename, now I can edit the type that I want. If I don't like this font Arial, I can change that. And you can pick whatever font you want. Honestly, the best idea, and when you're using fonts for architectural plans, is to make something that's clean and easy to read. I could like this one. You can change your text size. If I wanted to make that 1/2 inch, let's see what happens. And what I really should have done was name this text 1/2 inch MCM to keep it, to make it clear. So let's hit OK, and let's go back here. You notice how it's already bigger. And I just fill my text in. And I can move it to where I want it to be. And this is the important thing, is to move this text so it's easy, readable. You can either do it stacked or centered. I'm going to leave that up to you to kind of play with to see what you think looks best. I kind of tend to like things all like left to the left as opposed to centered, kind of stacked like that. Let's put the date in there. And if I wanted to make this as a smaller text as well, I can now make this a smaller text. If I wanted to, you could change this up. But the main thing that you have to remember is when you go in there is to rename and duplicate that and create new sizes and new ones all the time. Or if you go back and change it, it'll change all of them. Okay, so we want to do that. Next thing that we can do is we want to import a picture for our title page. So we have this little picture right here, and let's go ahead and insert a picture on our title page. And this can be whatever you want. If you want it to look like the lot that you wanted to put it in, if you just wanted it to look like something cool, like your architectural logo that you thought about, anything like that. I'm not deciding on what you want to put in a picture. I just need you to insert some type of picture onto your title page. So let's go to Insert tab. And then we're going to go to the Import panel and to the Image tool. So we're going to click on that. And now you have to find where your images are. I've got so much stuff on here. I don't know what this is, so let's see. So it's going to come in and look something like this. And then you can scale it down while it's active. And then you can just place this where you want it to go. So there's lots of different ways that you can really align this to make it easy. You should just look for something that's kind of visually appealing. But that's pretty much what we're looking at to create your title sheet.
Are there some stock images we can take from, or you don't care what image we grab? Any
I don't
image?
care what images. This is a stock image from another project I did for another job. So yeah, any image. I just want to see that you're able to import an image. If you want to import an image of your kid, put it on here, your dog, just any random thing off of the internet. If you want to take a picture, it doesn't matter what the picture is. It's just always importing it the same way. And that's just what, yeah, that's just what I want to see.
Thank you.
Okay. So that's pretty much how to do our title sheet. You want to fill in the rest of that information as mentioned. So let's jump on to our next sheet. Go back to Project Browser. Let's open up the sheets. And notice that once we put this information in, it's going to go ahead and update in here. And I'm going to come back here and I'm going to change this from general information. And when I do that, notice it updates over here as well. So you don't have to worry about that. So we want to do our next sheet. Let's do our next sheet.
I'm sorry, quick question. Should the title sheet be G101?
Yes. Yes, okay. G101.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not going to actually do a general information sheet on this. This is a general sheet, but it's just your title sheet. So.
All right, how did you save that? How did you save that so it shows up in the sheets?
It saves it automatically.
It saves automatically. Thank you.
Yep, no problem. So let's right click on that and do new sheet. We're going to do another 11 by 17. And notice it automatically saves. So this is the one that I'm using. It's active. It's in bold. So it automatically pops up and saves itself. So any changes I make to this sheet will be saved right here. So as soon as you start a new sheet, it'll do that. And notice how the numbering is going to start it right at G101. But if we jump back to our sheet information, we have our G101. The next sheet we are going to create is our A101. And that, if we jump back to our other sheet, you'll notice that is our site plan sheet. All right, so let's jump back to Revit. Here we're going to create our site plan. Let's go to our properties tab. No, our project browser tab. And with this sheet open, we're going to go to our project browser and we're going to click and hold the site. See how it's active like this now? Now I'm kind of dragging this over in place. And when I let go of it, I got something that looks like this. So now I'm just going to place this kind of central for my site plan. So there's a lot of steps involved with getting this set to where we want it to look appropriate, to make it look easy to read and how it should look on a set of plans. There's a few things I have wrong on here right now. A couple of things that would need to be corrected are these elevation markers. They need to be moved off. We do not want to see these on the sheet, and I'll show you how to do that. You do not want to have any of your plans set to a color view. They always want to be in hidden lines. The only thing that you ever want to have in a render view is your rendered drawings. So we want to change that. And then also you'll notice this drawing tag right here. There's a few things we have to do to correct that as well. And this all depends on how your the company you work for, the firm you work for likes things done. See how this got this one long part right here? Well, I just want to, while these nodes are active, I just want to straighten that, shorten that up. And I prefer it when it looks like that. This drawing is still active because I've got this box around it. Think of it like a viewport. And if I click off of here, it's gone. The nodes on here are gone. There's a few different things that we need to change. So with this sheet done, I'm going to jump back to my site level in my project browser. And I'm going to change a couple things. First thing I want to do is I want to change this to hidden lines. So go down to my visual styles and change that to hidden lines to have something that looks like this. I also want to move these guys out of the way. So the easiest way to do it is just kind of make them active like that. And I want to pull it straight back. You don't want to ever pull it like over here or over here, because that is going to mess up your elevation view. You want to take that and you just want to pull it straight back. And let's jump back to our sheet and see what happened. Jump back to our sheet. Okay, that's not what I want. Thank you. All right, so you can see the little changes that I've made are starting to make it look better slowly. Here we have this elevation marker that's outside the drawing now. We need to do the same with these. But also notice how small this site is. It's very small on this sheet. This is not a big sheet. And in this site, it looks very small. So let's click on this. Notice how here I'm outside the viewport and it's not active. Now the viewport is there. I can see it. And if I click on it, it will make it active. So now we have an active viewport. At this time, I can come over here to my properties. And here is my view scale. I can change my view scale now. And notice when I do that, that just kind of brings that up a little bit more. So let's go up 2 more. And let's just see what 1 more looks like. Not all these scales are going to be uniform. It depends on what fits best in here. And we also have to take into account how we're going to add our dimensions. Actually, that looks pretty good. I like that size there. So a couple of things to notice there. I'm going to click outside of here to turn my viewport off. A couple of things to notice. When I changed the scale of the drawing itself, it also changed the scale of these elevation markers and it moved them out of the way. So this one is way out over here now. These are probably going to be out of the way when I do a print to PDF. And then this one I still have to move. So let's jump back to site plan and do the same thing here. Grab this guy and pull him all the way back. Let's jump back to my sheet. All right, cool. We're starting to look better. But I've still got this drawing tag now kind of hanging out here, you know, in the nether regions. This is what gets confusing with this little drawing tag. So when the site, when the viewport is not active, when it looks like this, and you do not have the little nodes, the little blue nodes on either side of this, at this point, strangely enough, I can move the location of my drawing tag. So when this viewport is not active, you can move the location of your drawing tag. When the viewport is active, the little blue nodes show up, and that's when I can adjust the size of that line for my drawing tag. So it gets people confused and tripped up sometimes with that. So just be aware of that when you're creating that. The rest, notice how some of this information did translate from the other sheets that we created. It's going to automatically put in DCC in your midterm project. Some of this information will also translate. It's got your project number, it's got your date. You do need to go back and add the author and the checker. Here we need to change the number to an A101. It automatically inserts the scale for you, which is nice too. So even if you change the scale of this, it's automatically going to change this for you and here as well. So that's nice. And let's make this our site plan. So this is looking pretty good. It's looking much better. The last thing I want to do on here is throw in a couple of permanent dimensions. I'll go back and talk about temporary dimensions again. I know a couple of people still had questions about how to adjust temporary dimensions, but let's do our regular dimensions. Regular dimensions, you want to have your sheet to this point, because now I'm going to go back and add the temporary dimensions. If I did for my permanent dimensions, if I did my dimensions first and then imported my sheet, you know, I need to adjust it. I need to make a lot of adjustments here. I know where my site plan is, and I can adjust accordingly. You'll see when we get there how that kind of works out. All right, let's go to site. So now I'm in my site plan view. I'm going to go to my annotate tab, my dimension panel, and we always want to use aligned. This is the one that we want to use whenever we create any dimensions on here. So we're just going to make some basic dimensions. So I'm going to click on align, make it active. And at this point, I'm going to click on that part of the site and this part of the site and bring it out this way. I can lock that in place. And I'm going to do the same for this one down here. So just click, drag in place. And that's the size of my site. If we were doing any offsets and setbacks, we could also, and we'll do this in the second half of the semester, click from here to here and get our offsets correct. And this is just the property, the distance from your house to the property line. And we just want to put that in place. So something simple like this is what we're looking at just for our site plan values.
Sorry, real quick, is that gutter or edge of roof to
This,
property?
great question. This is edge of roof.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this one's edge of roof. I don't have to have the gutters on here. But if I did, it would be real important to make sure I picked the right line. So that was a good question. So let's jump back to our sheet, our site plan. So this is actually complete once I fill in this information down here. We just want something simple like this for our site plan. It's centered, it's balanced, it's easy to read. It's got just the dimensions of the site on here and then the setbacks on here as well. We'll talk more about setbacks in the second half of the semester. The title tag is the drawing tag is located in the lower left-hand corner of the drawing right here. Depending on what firm you end up working for, they'll have you align it where they want it aligned. But for this one, we're going to do lower left-hand corner. So that's actually a pretty good sheet. Any questions about that for now before we go on to the next one? Okay, cool. All right, so let's jump on to our next sheet. Let's go back to our project browser, go to Sheets, right-click, New Sheet, and the 11 by 17 horizontal, double-click on that, make it active. And notice we have an A201. Well, the next sheet that you want to create is the A201, not the A102. So a little dyslexic moment, so we'll make that A201. This is going to be your floor plan. It only has one floor, so you can call it floor plan or first floor. When we do multiple buildings, you'll want first floor, second floor, third floor, etc. Information that carried over, information that still needs to be added. There's no scale because we don't have a drawing in here yet. So let's go ahead and add that floor plan. So we're going to go back to our project browser, to our floor plan level 1, click and hold, drag. Click and hold and drag. Hello. Whoa, look at the size of that. That's why it looks weird. Okay, let's see what happens when we drop that in. All right, so it's so far out here because these elevation markers have been pulled out here from when we did that with the site plan as well. So that's okay. So we still want to kind of get this aligned. So it's centered. And the scale on this is still very small. So remember, this dotted line, this dashed line is our property line. We created that when we did our site. We do not want to see your site, your property lines when you're making your first floor plan. So we're going to hide that in a second. But let's scale this up to a size that we need it to be first off. Remember, this is active because we can see the viewport. We're going to jump to properties. We're going to jump to view scale. And let me go up 2 and see what that looks like. All right, that looks pretty good. I like that centered. We'll go into how to center these pretty much more exactly when we get to the second half of class. But even though that this is a little off without having exact measurements, what I can do is use my directional arrows on my keyboard, and it'll just move it just a little bit. So in those directional arrows, see how I can just move it just a tad bit while doing that. So I can center it a little bit better and more finely than dragging it around just by using the directional arrows on my keyboard. So while I still have this viewport active, I'm going to shrink up this drawing tag. And I'm going to click off. The drawing tag is not active, and now I can move it to the location that I want. And drop it there. And just by the way this is laid out, I want to kind of continue to move the location of that drawing so it'll be easier for me to add dimensions. So I can click on here, make it active. I'm going to use my directional arrows again, just kind of bump that up just a little bit. Click off that. Now, if I wanted to do my dimensions first and then import everything, I could do that as well. So it's just a matter of what you prefer to do and what you find more comfortable. Because a lot of times people put the dimensions in and they're like way off, and then you've got to go back and correct everything. But if you think about it in advance and you have your dimensions and they're really tight on the inside of this, you can do that as well. Once again, it's just kind of a practice thing, how you want to do it. But I want to go ahead and add the dimensions to this now. So I'm going to jump back to my level 1 floor plan. So with the floor plan active, I'm going to go to my annotate tab, dimension panel, and my align tool. So I'll click on that, make it active. And same thing, we want to get overall dimensions on here. So it's going to default to the center location line, and then we just want to drag it out. But here's where we can adjust location of these guys. Same thing for this side. And adjust. I don't know if y'all can hear that, sorry. Drowned out by a helicopter. So here I have my 2 exterior wall dimensions. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to do my interior dimensions. Now, before I do that, there's a couple of things I want to show you. Notice that I do have this pattern here for my carpet. And this is really could muddy our drawing for when we do our internal dimensions. Like, let's just throw that one on there now. Let's just do from here to here. Notice with that pattern on, it's really kind of busy. So there's a way that we can actually turn this off and and then turn off our property line by doing a couple of things. And you're going to want to do this anytime you tweak your sheets to make sure that the drawings look correct. So at this point, I want to go ahead and hide this floor. So there's a few different ways that you can hide floors and hide all sorts of fun things in here. So one of the main ways that we hide stuff, and we want to keep it, we've done temporary hide before, but this one I want to stay hidden for a while. So I'm going to hit VG on my keyboard, or VV. And this is going to bring up our visibility graphics. And this is where I can turn things on and off and all sorts of fun stuff. So here's my floors. If I come down here.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can you go through that one more time? How did we get to this panel?
So in order to turn this off, I want to access visibility graphics.
Oh,
This is a way that I can control the views of certain things within my Revit model. So there's a shortcut to get there, and you can type VV or VG. VG is pretty easy to remember from visibility graphics. And as soon as you type that, this is going to pop up.
perfect. Thank you.
Yep, and there's a few different things that we can adjust here: model categories, annotations, all this other stuff down here. Typically what we usually do is model categories, annotation categories, or imported categories. So for this particular one, we're just going to be doing model categories, and that means the model that you're working in. So I'm going to come down to my floors, and I want to turn those off. So if I uncheck that and I just hit apply, notice how it turned off that pattern. It makes things a lot easier to read. So I hit cancel, and it didn't take, so you see how those pop back. So let's do that again. So we'll do VB for visibility graphics. We'll go down to floors. I'm going to click on floors, and I'm just going to hit OK. And it's going to turn off that pattern off. So my views are getting a lot easier to read rather than having those busy floor patterns on my floor plan. So another way that we can hide stuff is by right-clicking. Well, click on it, make it active, right-click, and then we can put hide in view. And this one, we're just going to do element. And notice that'll hide that as well. So I don't recommend doing hide in view a lot, just because it confuses a lot of people, because you'll do that and then you'll like forget that you did that, and then people like freak out like, oh my God, where did that go? Because it's harder to get things back with the hide in view. So if I wanted to get that back, what I could do is go back down here to reveal hidden elements, like this little light bulb. So I'm going to click on this little light bulb, and everything that is hidden is now going to show up on here in red. So it's got my floor pattern, because my floor pattern's hidden, and it's got my property lines, my property line that's hidden. So if I wanted to turn the property line back on, I could click on it now, right click, and unhide in view. And if I unhide it and I turn my little light bulb off, my this one is back. So I recommend going over that a couple of times, and just to get practice at it. So, but we should have something that kind of looks like this. Now we just want to kind of fill in the rest of our dimensions on here. So we want to go back to aligned. We wanted to measure to the window. I forgot if that was measured from the interior wall or the exterior wall, but that's going to be a big one that you need to know. Jump back to that floor plan that we got the information from. So if this was measured from the interior wall, you'd want it to be here. If it was measured from the exterior wall, obviously you'd want it to be here. So make sure you have that one correct where those come from. We can do our dimensions up here now. Set those nodes to where we need them to be. And you can continue on like that. All right, so we're looking pretty good. We get our internal inside dimensions for our rooms, how deep this room is. We don't need another, actually, we don't need both dimensions over here because we know this one. We don't want to repeat dimensions. This is unnecessary, actually, because I already have this one in place. So I can actually delete that. We don't need duplicate dimensions because we have our exterior dimension, we have our wall dimensions, and we know that'll give us the how wide this part of the room is as well. Same thing for this one. Next thing I want to do is with the other windows that I have in place. For your other windows, just go ahead and set those dimensions on there for your windows and for your doors. Let's jump back to our sheet now. Take a look at that. That's looking pretty good. Yeah.
Excuse me, did you say that we needed dimensions for the windows and the doors as well?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll throw a dimension on a door right here, or actually for this door. But I don't have all my windows in. So like I have this window here. So let's jump to, let me go back to floor plan and I'll put one on the door. So aligned, and it came from this part to here. And if it wasn't to the center of the window or the door, you can always change the location of where that's from, depending on where that dimension came from our original dimension, from our original sheet that we copied. Okay. So the main thing to remember is just take a look at that sheet. Let's get back to that. Oh, so much stuff. So go back to this sheet and use these, and this is an example of how to lay out your dimensions. So you can see how we have everything dimensioned here, the interiors of the room, the exterior. So you want to just basically duplicate what I have here. So for that one measurement that I have to the door, this is actually not, that's not actually not how I want it done. I didn't measure from here, I measured from the internal side of this window. So let's correct that. So let's go back to Revit and notice here for this dimension, it's actually, I have it set to this exterior wall. Well, actually it's not. We know it now that it was set from the center of this window. So we can just pull that to the center of this window where it's located. Let me jump back to that. It's actually to the center of the door. So if we bump that back to the center of the door, I don't think I must have put that dimension in here because notice this is 8'9". And this is 7'6". So that means I did not actually dimension this correctly. So let's take a look at a couple of things of what happened there. If we look at this again, my door is backwards. Your door should be facing this way. I need to correct the door and I need to correct that. Well, I'll correct that with my temporary dimensions. So remember, if I click on this, make it active, I can swing that around. So now the door is in the right place. And I need to make sure that this is correct as well, so the correct dimensions. So I want to make sure this measures from the right part. So I grab that node and I pull it to the space that I want. And this is measured from the center of this window to the center of this door, and it's 8'9". Well, now, since this is measured from the center of the window to the center of the door, I can change my temporary dimension, make that 8'9", and it will move that in place now. Here, I can go ahead and click on the dimension symbol, click on the dimension itself, and lock it into place. And notice as I did all that with my temporary dimension, my permanent dimension changed as well. So that corrected itself. Now I can go ahead and click on here, delete it. Yes, we know it's going to do that. That's what we want. And now this dimension and the location of this door is correct as well. So basically, go back to your site plan that you have that you used to, used to begin this sheet, and duplicate these dimensions just like they are on here. That's pretty straightforward. All right, so let's jump back to Revit. So I'd want to continue dimensioning as shown. Let's jump back to our sheet itself. And notice that's coming out pretty nice. So the other thing I mentioned in here for a list of things to do today was also poche. Notice how these walls are clear, but a lot of times on architectural plans, you'll see where these walls are darkened in. And when the walls are darkened in, that's called a poche. So we want to do that as well. I'm going to jump back to level 1. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the wall, right click. Here, I'm going to go to override graphics in view. I'm going to just do by element first, which means just that one wall I'm going to do first. I'm going to click on element. It's going to give me this new window. Here, I want to change the cut pattern, which means where the top of it is cut off so we can see the top of the wall. So I'm going to change the cut pattern to solid fill. And I'm going to change the material to black. And hit OK. So now I got something like that, but I changed it to red instead. I can go ahead and fix that by going back in here, right click, override graphics in view by element, and then change that color back to black. So that's how you do one at a time, but that could be super tedious with depending on the size of your drawing. Sometimes you'll want to highlight just one that's darkened than the other, or you want to highlight different walls in different colors to say like this is a fire rated wall. Maybe you do want it red. For the most part, we just want to use black. So let's go ahead and click on this wall, right click, override graphics in view. Now we're going to do by category. But we want to do the same thing. We're going to go to our pattern and make that solid fill. And we're going to go down to color, make sure we click on black. We're going to hit OK. And OK again. And it does them all at the same time by doing category. Remember, by element is one, by category is obviously by category, all of them in that category. Let's jump back to our sheet, see how we're looking. Looking pretty nice. Just got to finish up the dimensions. This sheet is looking very good. Just finish up the dimensions per the instructions, and this one will be good to go. So the last sheet we're going to do today, we're going to do one elevation sheet, part of it, and I'm going to leave the rest up to you. And if you've got questions on how to create those sheets, we can revisit that on Wednesday. All right, so let's do one more sheet. So we want to create our elevation sheet, one of them. So go to sheet, right click, new sheet. Same one, 11 by 17 horizontal. Here, I'm just going to import my east elevation. So I'm going to click on east elevation, drag it over. Got something that looks like this. I'm just going to drop that in place. I'm going to do the same thing with my west elevation. Click and drag. And I want to get them as aligned as possible so they're one on top of the other. So a lot of times people drop them in and just leave them as this, which is not great. And the scale isn't great either. I should have probably scaled them before I moved them. So let's just scale everything up by 1. So click on it, make it active, the viewport, you see it now. Come over to properties, go to view scale. We're going to go up by 1. It's looking better. Let's see if we can fit 2 at that scale in. It's going to be tight, but it'll work. I like that better actually, because we're not going to add a lot of dimensions for here. We already have our elevation dimensions and stuff like that. So let's just stack these so they look better using our directional arrows. Those are pretty close. So sometimes people just leave it here. Obviously, that's very wrong. We have our dimension lines kind of hanging out here, our elevation markers hanging out here. If I went to print this, this would not show up. And we have our drawing tags hanging out here as well. So a few things that we need to adjust here. First, let's go ahead and jump into our elevation views and adjust these elevation markers. So I'm going to go to properties. Oh, sorry, project browser. East elevation. At this point with these elevation markers, I want to move them to so they're closer into the house. I'll click on one, make it active. Notice we have a lock right here. This lock means that these 2 elevations are locked in place and will move together at the same time. So now if I grab this little part right here, I can drag that in. Bring that closer. And the same with this one over here. Oops, missed it. Grabbing the wrong part. Let's jump back to our elevation sheet. Notice how this is looking a lot better now. This tag is not active, so I can drag it and place it where I want it. It should be right there. If I click on the viewport now, notice it's shrunk because I shrunk those elevation markers. So I'm going to click on that. Now the tag is active. And I'll shrink that into place there. So that's looking a lot better. I want to do the same thing here, kind of just tweak those. And the interesting thing is, especially in the elevations, notice that I just moved the elevations for this elevation, for our east elevation, but it also moved the elevation markers for our west elevation as well. So that's kind of a nice shortcut that they move together, but notice they're not exactly on top of each other. They're not ending and starting in the right place. That's okay. You can just leave it at that. They both moved at the same time and shrunk. We want to have something that looks like this. Lastly, what I want to do on here is move this drawing tag to the lower left-hand corner. Notice I get that location line that pops up, so they'll be stacked in one place. Click on the viewport, make it active, and then shrink this guy up. Notice the elevation, the location line is coming up as well, so I can stop that there. So it should be both the same size. Just tiny little things like that kind of make a drawing set look better. Obviously, I'll need to change this information here. I'll need to make this east-west elevation. I need to change this to A301. And the next one that I would create for my north and south elevations would be an A302. Fill in the rest of that information, and you'll be looking pretty good on this sheet as well. Last thing I want you to do is learn how to do print to PDF. So this is the best way to create printable drawings here. So do a print to PDF. So I'm going to jump back to my title page, just because it's got the picture on it. So if I wanted to create this as a sheet that I can look at and print, I'd want to print it to PDF. And what does that mean? That means we're going to go to our file. We're going to go to print. And for our printer name, we want to either use Adobe PDF or Microsoft PDF. I prefer Microsoft PDF because Adobe PDF can be very ornery at times. So if we just use Microsoft PDF, it should be fine. So we just want to print one sheet. So we're going to hit OK. Here it's going to ask me where I want this saved as. I'm going to call this my G101. G101 title sheet. Save. It's going to do this magic. Oh, I hope I can remember where I saved that to. Oh, let's do that again. Print. Okay. That's G101. Title sheet. You can come back and find it the other way, but I'll just go ahead and save a new one. Now I'm going to go to that area. So much stuff. Oh my gosh. Here's my G101 title sheet. I'll click on that, open it up. And then I've got something that looks like that. This will be what you'll want to turn in along with your Revit file. So you'll create your Revit file and then you'll print to PDF all those 4 sheets. And this PDF will also be turned in on Friday. So you'll have your Revit file to be turned in with all that information in it. And then you'll also turn in 4 PDF sheets. So that's pretty much it for today's lecture. Any questions, y'all?
Where are your recorded files? Like
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I'm gonna share that again. Did someone share this for us? Ah, thank you. Yeah. So yeah, that's just right there. And I'll send another, if someone, Josh shared it in the chat, thank you. And I'll send another email out just so you have it. So everything is gonna be on here.
Late for roll call. I was about 10 minutes late. I don't know if you had missed me or not.
And who's this? I'm sorry.
Real?
Oh, Gabriel? Okay, no problem, Gabriel. All right, let me jump back to Revit stuff.
where the recording is going to be?
I'm going to email you the link, and then also if you open the chat, Josh dropped it right there on YouTube. And I'll email it again for you so you have it. I'll send that out to everybody. And what I would suggest is go ahead and, as cheesy as it sounds, like all these YouTubers are like and subscribe. And if you subscribe, you will always find out when the next class will be, class will be uploaded. So if you like and subscribe, you'll always get the updates. Any other questions, y'all?
Yeah, well, we're gonna talk after class or
Okay, we can talk after class. We redid temporary dimensions real quick. And then also in the YouTube channels, if you look in the information about the class, it'll tell you what's covered in that class too. I try and cover as much, put as much information in there so you can, instead of having to watch the whole thing again to figure out what it's about, I do put that information in the class information, in the YouTube information, so you know what we covered in that class.
Is it possible just to real quick do
Mhm.
the temporary dimensions again, just to show me
Sure.
that?
Yeah, definitely. Let me do it from the start of a new file. Might make it a little bit easier. Get a file, new. I want to work from a architectural template.
Because I have my I have all my doors and my windows in, but they're currently those same measurements, but they're from the center of the wall.
Okay, yeah.
So I just want to adjust those windows and everything to an interior wall. And I'm having a hard time locating that temporary dimension again.
Not a problem. We can fix that. All right. So if we're just going to start with our walls, So I'm just gonna randomly draw some walls. I'm not paying any attention to anything except the location line. So at least I have a proper rectangle. So if this was supposed to be 35 by 10, measured from the exterior wall, I'm going to click on this wall right here. This is the wall that's active. So this is the wall that's going to move. This wall is going to either move left or right, depending on what I change this dimension to. But it's starting right now from the center line. We need to change this to our exterior dimension. So remember, we're going to click on this node and see how it flips.
I can do that. But so let's just say I'm just trying to move a window. Now I have my window, it's clicked, it's highlighted, it's active, but I'm not seeing any temporary dimension.
Oh, okay. So you're having trouble moving the windows?
Yes.
The windows can be a little ornery. So I'm going to drop that in place. And with my window still active, I'm going to change.
Those dimension lines don't come up when I make my window active.
It depends. I wish I knew why, but at certain times they're not going to. I don't know if it's if we save it, at certain times, if you click on doors or windows, you cannot get that temporary dimension back. I don't have a better answer for you. What I do in that case is I just delete that window and I put in a new window.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, but at the same time, with this active, when I've got it like this, so I've got this door now, which muddies things up even more. Delete that. Or, what I'm gonna do is take this door, I'm gonna hide the door. Now, when I come back over here, the door is hidden, so my dimensions are a lot cleaner. So now I can adjust them where I want them. If I'll put the door back now. And now if I want to click on the door, if this window is getting in the way and I don't like the way that's affecting my temporary dimension, I can take this window, hide it. Now I'll just have the door measurement and that'll come from exterior wall to the door to the exterior wall. But I need to make sure that it's set to the right point in the exterior wall.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. When I was loading the windows in, when I would click on the window, when I would insert the window into the wall and the temporary dimensions would show up. But then when I try to go adjust the temporary dimensions, like the mouse would move the dimension and the window all over the place. So then I guess I'll try it again, but it just got things got a little dicey.
It gets very frustrating at times, and I wish I had a better answer for you, but sometimes instead of just trying to get that one thing to move, it's always better to just delete it, because you're going to beat yourself in the head about how to get that right, and just do another one. And then while you're there and it's active, then you can, even though they've got this little symbol here, you can still click on it to change it at that time.
That's when it got dicey.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's a parameter for depending on what type of window you're using or what it is, but I've noticed that from time to time, certain windows are like that. So it's instead of trying to edit that one window, sometimes it's always just best, especially since it's just a window, you just drop it in place, just delete it and put in another one.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'll go erase all these dimensions and windows and I'll try it again.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's good. Once you get finished with that, it should be ingrained.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions, y'all? All right, that's it for lecture today. If you have any other questions about anything, you can I'm going to stop the recording and you can stay after class, so to speak, and answer any questions that you want. I'm going to stop this recording.